Well, what a pleasant surprise this was. Mirror's Edge Catalyst has been sat in my backlog for almost the full 10 years that it's been out, and I finally made the decision to play through this. Today I want to share my views on Mirror's Edge Catalyst, and if it's worth your time giving this game a go in 2025. When Catalyst first dropped, it had mixed receptions. Critics praised the stunning visuals and the core free-running mechanics, which were undeniably smooth and exhilarating. But then came the buts: a criticised storyline, a clunky combat system, and a somewhat repetitive open world. So in 2025, do these criticisms still stand, or is it time to be kind on Fate's second outing? Let's start with one of the parts that critics praised the most, and that's the graphics. This game at times is still absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. The clean, minimalist architecture, the vibrant pops of red and other primary colours against the pristine white, the dynamic lighting, is still a feast for the eyes even in 2025. In the world saturated of hyper-realistic, gritty graphics, Catalyst's stylised version of the dystopian future stands out. Running across rooftops, seeing the city spread out beneath you, it genuinely evokes a sense of both awe and isolation. The art direction truly is timeless, and in 2025 it still feels fresh and distinct. It's a testament to DICE's artistic vision that a game from nearly a decade ago can still impress visually. The reflections on the glass, the subtle dusts of motes in the air, the way the light catches on the smooth surfaces. It all contributes to a credible, cohesive and striking aesthetic. It almost hints at the very early ray tracing, but without the performance impact. Performance-wise in 2025, Mirror's Edge Catalyst is generally quite good on modern hardware, while some users reported performance issues even at launch, particularly on less powerful systems. Today's mid to high range PCs and current gen consoles should have no issues handling this, allowing you to enjoy those stunning visuals and high frame rates. On PC you have ample graphical options to fine-tune your experience, from texture quality to anti-aliasing, allowing for a truly pristine presentation if your rig can handle it. For console players, on PlayStation 5, the game generally targets a locked 60 FPS through its still stunning and original PlayStation 4 resolution, often noted around the 900p, which can still look soft on a large 4K display. Xbox Series X users though, which was the main appeal for me to try this game in the first place, can benefit from the FPS boost, potentially allowing for up to 120 FPS on compatible displays, which is a fantastic addition for the game so reliant on fluidity. There have been reports of some minor texture bugs and visual glitches for some players across the platform, but these seem to be an isolated and not widespread game-breaking issue. The visual fidelity has truly held up, looking far better than many games of the era, especially when running so smoothly. The 900p output can blur certain moments, and in-game character models look particularly bad, but running through this world at 120 FPS is an almost flawless experience. Now let's take a look at the gameplay. This is the heart and soul of Mirror's Edge, and Catalyst largely nails it. The sense of flow, the chaining together movements seamlessly, is incredibly satisfying. DICE really refined the parkour mechanics of the first game, making them feel even more fluid and responsive. The runner's vision system, while sometimes a little too guiding for veterans, does help maintain the momentum, especially for new players trying to grasp the ideal path. When you hit the perfect stride, weaving through obstacles, vaulting over gaps, sliding under pipes, it feels almost balletic. It's an unparalleled feeling in gaming. The momentum-based movement system is incredibly rewarding, encouraging players to master the environment and find their own efficient lines. However, the open-world design of the City of Glass often feels empty. The shift from more linear, tightly designed levels of the original Mirror's Edge to this open structure was a contentious choice. While it offers more freedom for self-directed parkour and finding your own routes, most of the side content feels repetitive. Time trials and delivery missions are fun in short bursts, but they often require traversing the same areas repeatedly, which can lead to a sense of a grind. The world feels like a beautiful playground, but without enough compelling reasons to explore every corner beyond the main story's path. The unlocking of abilities via a skill tree rather than having them available from the start also feel a bit restrictive, forcing you to earn basic parkour moves. Now let's take a look at the worst part of the gameplay, the combat. DICE made a very deliberate decision with Catalyst: no player wielded guns. This was a direct response to the criticism of the original game's clunky shooting mechanics. The idea here was to double down on Faith's identity as a runner, focusing solely on melee attacks and takedowns, using her agility and momentum as her weapon. And in concept, that sounds fantastic. It perfectly aligns with the game's core philosophy of fluid movement and non-lethal engagement. In practice, however, it's a different story. When the combat works, when you smoothly transition from a wall run into a kick that sends enemies careening into another, or you perfectly time a counter that disarms a foe, it's incredibly empowering. There's a certain satisfaction to using your surroundings to your advantage while maintaining your flow, that state where Faith is harder to hit, to zip around enemies and strike to weak points. These moments feel truly like an extension of the parkour. But these moments are unfortunately not the consistent experience. The reality is that encounters often devolve into a less graceful, more frustrating affair. Enemies, particularly later in the game, can feel like damage sponges, requiring multiple hits to take down, which immediately breaks the fluid rhythm of the game. Faith has a light and heavy attack and can dodge, but the enemy AI often feels like it's designed to impede your movement rather than engage in a dynamic dance. You'll find yourself locked in smaller arenas, forced to fight a group of guards, and instead of feeling like an agile, unstoppable force, you'll often feel bogged down. The issue is compounded by the game's inconsistent balance between combat and traversal. Whilst Catalyst generally allows you to outrun most threats, there are specific mandatory encounters in the main story that force you to clear the room of enemies before you can progress. These forced brawls are almost universally considered the weakest part of the game. They highlight the clunkiness of the melee system, pulling you out the exhilarating flow that makes Mirror's Edge so special. You're left wishing you could just bypass the fight and continue sprinting across the rooftops. Now let's take a look at the story. Mirror's Edge Catalyst is a prequel/reboot aiming to flesh out Faith's origins in the world of Glass. The narrative attempts to tackle themes of corporate control, surveillance, and rebellion, ideas that are highly relevant, perhaps even more so in 2025, given the current geopolitical and technological trends. However, the execution falls flat. The characters, including Faith herself, often feel a bit generic and one-note. Whilst we learn more about her past, her motives and emotional journey don't always resonate strongly, and even from the off, I really didn't care. The plot, whilst having some interesting ideas about the totalitarian regime of the Kruger sect and the struggles of the runners, struggling to create a truly compelling emotional connection or any consistent sense of urgency. The villain, whilst menacing in concept, isn't particularly memorable. It's serviceably enough to push you through the stunning environments, but it's unlikely to stick with you long after the credits roll. There are moments where the story forces you into combat scenarios, which we spoke about earlier. I found this all largely forgettable, and the second weakest part after the combat. Beyond the main story, Catalyst offers a decent amount of additional content, primarily in the form of time trials and delivery missions. These are where the pure parkour gameplay truly shine. Chasing leaderboard times, optimising your routes, and chaining together perfect runs remains incredibly addictive. The game also features collectibles scattered throughout the city, encouraging exploration. However, one significant hit to the extra's longevity in 2025 is a server shut down by EA in December 2023. This means that all online multiplayer features, including user-generated time trials and leaderboards, are no longer functional. This was a core part of the game's replayability for many, as it fostered a competitive community of speedrunners. Whilst the predefined time trials are still available, the dynamic, player-driven content is unfortunately gone, which is a shame for those seeking to extend their playtime beyond the single-player campaign. There are still some achievements tied to these now defunct online features, making 100% completion impossible through normal means, which is frustrating oversight. So in conclusion, Mirror's Edge Catalyst in 2025 is a game that still shines brightly in its core strengths, whilst its weaknesses remain largely the same. The unparalleled parkour mechanics, the breathtaking art style, and the immersive sound design are still genuinely exceptional. They create an experience unlike anything else out there, a true celebration of the fluid first-person movement. However, the somewhat shallow story, the repetitive open-world filler, and the often clunky combat do hold it back from true greatness. And the loss of the online features, whilst understandable for an older game, is still a disappointing aspect for dedicated players. If you're looking for a gripping narrative or deep combat, Catalyst may leave you wanting. But if you're a fan of the original Mirror's Edge, or simply crave a game that delivers an unparalleled sense of speed and freedom through a stunning urban landscape, Mirror's Edge Catalyst is absolutely still worth experiencing in 2025. is a game that, despite its flaws, manages to capture the unique, exhilarating feel that few titles have ever matched, making it a cult classic that continues to stand out in the crowded gaming landscape. It's a game that takes you back to that 360 era of gaming. With a short runtime, it doesn't overstay its welcome. So there you have it. There's my thoughts on Mirror's Edge Catalyst in 2025. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, give it a thumbs down if you didn't, leave any questions or comments in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.